Piese su domie, dona eis requie.
On the podcast known as
Thump.
Trapped Under Plastic, the podcast where glue fumes and bad decisions meet.
Probably some fumes involved in that movie-making decision for sure. So we're recording this podcast 1 week after we recorded the last one.
Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
A little ahead of schedule. So I'm curious, what do you do on this Friday, on the off Friday? You just work a normal day?
Yes, I paint. Usually, like, Fridays, if a video has come out, that's my way to, like, get a head start on the next video.
Okay.
And if a video didn't come out, that means I had to schedule. If I knew I had that Friday non-podcast and I didn't have a video out, that means I had 5 full work days to paint. And that means that those projects are like heavy lift projects. So I have to be scheduling in 40 to 60 hours of painting in a work week. And that means, like, comes to Friday, I'm like, fuck, I got to fucking finish this thing. So
40 to 60 hours of painting in a work week? You paint a thing for that long?
if it's my weeks where I don't have a video, that means I commit that full 5 days to painting a bigger project. Yeah.
Was the Skaven dude that came out in last week's video or this week's video, was that like a longer paint job?
Yeah, the Claw Lord on Knobbyist.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably 40 hours in that one model.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's
Goddamn.
I stand by it. I took pictures, like, up close shots. I didn't take them up close. I zoomed them in so they aren't super crispy. But I found that, like, if I do that for models that, you know, you put 10 hours in or 5 hours in or whatever, you kind of zoom in like that, and you're like, yeah, I can see. When I zoomed in on this thing, I'm like, well, I can see I put more time into it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It holds up more. But, yeah, and that one was, okay, it was on one of those weeks where I had a full week, but we did record, so it was 4 days. And I had some other stuff. So it was probably more like 3 full days of painting to paint that thing, which is still a lot. It was still over 20 hours, 25 probably-ish hours to paint that thing, maybe 30.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it's so tough for me whenever I release a video. First of all, back in the day, it used to feel good to, like, render a video. Like, it was like, oh, yes, I'm done. But now there's this arduous thumbnailing process that goes on afterward. Dude, okay, I'm not sure if you've noticed. Someone commented on my video and noticed I have made 8 different thumbnails for this World of Warcraft video because this is not performing very well. I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase it to my audience with the intro that I've done. And you would think it's pretty simple, right? You just put fucking World of Warcraft and Blizzard somewhere in the title and thumbnail, or one of them and not the other. Turns out, when I do that, those are the worst performing thumbnails.
Really?
Yeah, and it seems like it's the best performance when it's more of a mystery as to what I'm painting. At least for this particular subject. But anyways, yeah, so that feels bad. But the reason I bring this up is because whenever I finish a video, like actually finish it with a thumbnail, upload it, description's all nice and pretty, sponsor approves of it, everything is checked off. For me, I like going into celebration mode.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, when the 100%. Video comes out on Friday,
100%.
It's Friday, you know, it's 9 a.m., everything's polished and looking good. It's like, I want to go get McDonald's breakfast, you know? It's like, it's party time.
Yeah, I'm the same way, and I think that is healthy, because I had a video that dropped this morning, and so I'm driving up here. I'm in a good mood.
Yeah,
I'm like, you get this moment of letting yourself have this reprieve, relax, just like any other job. When you get a big project done, or a big stressful something, a deadline, or even just like a really busy Saturday night, if you're working at fucking Applebee's, you know, you make it through that shift, you get that camaraderie, you're like, oh, we did it through the shittiest night of the week, you know. I sell more fucking riblets than the rest of you bitches.
Riblets,
bro. I'm ready to relax, you know. And I think that you need to give yourself those moments, no matter what you're doing, you know, whatever task, and even as part of like a miniature painting project too. It's like you finished a big project, you need to just be able to, like, and feel satisfied and feel relaxed. And yes, there's things you could have done better. Yes, you learned something and you're going to do things differently next time, but still have that, like, absorb and feel good.
Absolutely. That's why I was curious what you would do on the off weeks, but you just get right back to it.
I mean, I ain't got time to breathe. You know?
Got time. All right, I feel that. Let's get into the Preamble Ramble because we ain't got time We actually have a decent amount of time to finish this episode. Preamble Ramble. I'm going to Greece. Woo!
Greece. You're gonna have we just had Greek Fest in Rochester last week, and I had some Greek
that's
food.
that's just
which is
good.
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Went to the Greek Orthodox Church, which is the size of the fucking St. John's Cathedral in Rochester. Apparently, the Greeks have plenty of money in that town. Apparently, and I got some fucking Greek food. I'm just hijacking your Greece trip right now.
My wife is Greek. She has a Greek family. Her mother's maiden name is Caracas. So they have a place out there, her great aunt and uncle. And we wanted to go. We actually bought tickets to go in 2021. And then all the flights got canceled because of COVID. And so we've been meaning to go back. And we are going to go back. We're going to an island called Ithaki or Ithaca, which is really strange because my parents grew up and met in Ithaca, New York. Which is based on Ithaki, the island. So we're going to go there, just going on that island, not going to Athens or anything like that. And just going to hang out and check out the local restaurants and be with her family and relax and hike and do that kind of stuff. So,
Eat a bunch of fucking olives.
Exactly. That's why we are doing the podcast early, because I won't be here next Friday.
Are the Ithaki related at all to the Dothraki?
Well, I'll find out. I'll let you know.
You just
I fucking hope not.
You just go there and they're just like nomads riding horses all day,
Shirtless,
living in tents. You're like, fuck yeah, dude. If they do that, don't have a crown on, right? Because they will melt it.
Oh, is that what they do?
Yeah. So they did the whatever his name is,
The
Mother of Dragon's brother.
Oh, I can't remember. Was that season 1?
Yeah, season 1. Yes, it's.
Or sorry, you're laughing because you're like, it's a fucking book, you loser.
It's book 1. It's one of the high points in book 1.
Okay, I couldn't remember that.
And not that book series has many high points.
Oh no.
Fuck that old fat piece of shit.
Whoa! All right, on to John's Preamble Ramble topic.
It's Greece.
Greece.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Chimera.
Oh, I know about Chimera. Let me talk about Chimera.
By all means. So I had in my video a couple months ago, I did about paring down my painting, my paints list. Like I had too many paints, and some things need to get the axe. Like that is just part of life, you know. Some things you need to cut out that cancer. And I mentioned in that video that I've had a number of issues with the number of the paints in Chimera, that they just they're bad, like the quality control for them on their paints, or something in shipping, something bad happened where half the paints are basically unusable. They're so separated, they're completely like a thick solid at the bottom, or chunky, or just completely runny. And I had tried to reach out before and wondered, and other people had the same experience that I had talked to. So I thought, well, just maybe this is just how it is. And one of their employees, one of the owners of the company, reached out to me on Instagram. And he's like, there's something wrong with your paint. Like, they shouldn't act that way, you know, and he's kind of mad at me because I talk shit about their paint. And I'm like, I didn't talk shit about your paint. I gave my experience, and that means that I don't use it. And he's like, well, let me send you paint and show you. And so that just arrived. You know, that was months ago and kind of back and forth, and that just arrived. And they also sent me some of their new brushes, which I am excited to use because they have those weird diamond tip brushes.
Like this one?
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Have you tried using?
Oh yeah. They just sit on my desk as I have a little pile of usable brushes, and they're in that pile, and I'll grab them and use them whenever.
And they're solid. Is the shape make much difference for the audio listeners? Instead of thinking like a regular round brush, if you were to just look at the ferrule where the brush bristles enter the ferrule, it's a circle. In these, it's more like an iris shaped, right? Or like an almond shaped.
Yeah, like an arrowhead, like a triangle. Yeah,
Yes.
It's fatter at the bottom than it is at the top, significantly.
Yeah, so then it gives you. You're right. That's a great example. The arrowhead, the actual brush itself is narrower on one side, fatter on the other, and shaped like an arrowhead.
Yeah.
And apparently that's really good for really straight lines. So that narrow side, if you tighten it even more, you can get really thin lines for doing textures, for doing eyes, for doing little thin lines and stuff. So
Yeah.
I do love me some little scratchy lines. So.
Yeah. So it's not a cone, you know, it's not 3D fat all the way around. It's like fat in like one orientation, like an arrowhead. And then like, yeah, when you rotate it, it gets thinner in the other one. Yeah. I read their documentation about what they said it's supposed to do. I can't really notice. You know, it paints largely the same. I think we use such a small volume of paint for the majority of what we're doing that it'll be hard to notice the things they say the brush is supposed to do. But, you know, your mod may vary. Give it a shot. Let me know.
I think a big thing is as long as you are not paying a premium for the shape, if you're paying roughly the same amount for the similar quality, it seemed to be high quality. I haven't used them yet, so I can't comment on that. But if they're roughly the same price for a round as they are for this, it'd be worth, you know, at least testing. I can't imagine. You're probably right. They don't act that much differently, but they're also probably not going to act worse.
Yeah.
So.
I will say the logic is sound. Like what they were explaining, I was like, okay, I can see how that would make sense. It's just like whether or not it actually like translates to a real life experience is kind of, you know, up to you.
Yes. So I will say one thing, and that I have about the paint. I bought, I think, everything other than their most recent Kickstarter. I kind of just like, I'm off it for them like making mixed color sets, because the whole point of the Chimera set, at least to me as a consumer, was single pigment or like 2 pigment combinations for very kind of important, powerful key colors in painting in general. And then they started doing these artist series and this other shit where they were just making miniature paint, where it's like, this is a middle skin tone and shit. I'm like, bro, that's not the point of this. But like the first 3 sets are all like primary secondaries. They just sent me the first set, which is fine. That's only about a third of the paints that are fucked for me, but at least it's the key ones. And I haven't used them yet because they just arrived to me in the mail yesterday. But I opened the box and I checked them and I shook them. And one of the worst ones that I just knew as soon as I looked at their bottles that I have is their yellow oxide. Mine is completely unusable, has been since the day I got it. This one, I shook it up and the ball clinked like beautifully. I opened it and I'm like, this is 4 times thicker than mine. So just on first glance, I am going to use them. I mean, there's a good chance that just that first set will stay in my rotation. Obviously the red, their Chimera's red, like it's the best red ever made. So I'm like, that color will never go. And even after I took all the Chimera off my shelves, it was like 3 days. And then I put the red back on the shelf because it was like, I can't live without it. When I need a screaming, like vibrant red, whether you're starting with a darker, even a mid-tone red, and you want to highlight up to a brighter color, but you don't want it to be pink and you don't want it to be orange, because those are the 2 ways you can go with red. You can use that as your pure punchy highlight, and it works.
Yeah. It's a great paint. I love the violet a lot. I also love the magenta, but just like you, I have some paints that are totally fucked. And
my magenta's fucked too.
Yeah, mine is totally messed up. It's super thin, and also it's like really glossy or satin. It's not matte at all. And it's the same thing for my black. My black is matte, but it's super thin. Like no matter how much I shake it. So those are the 2 ones I struggle with.
I will let you know and see if it's like, it could have been because you got yours pretty early on.
Yeah,
too. I think we might have been like, because we were in like the first batch or something, that there was something. But yeah, I have colors too that they're like, my violet is like that, because the violet is so crazy strong. Like it is might be the strongest paint. And when I say strong, I mean like you mix anything with that violet, that mix is just violet. Like it fucking it eats every other pigment in the universe. It is like the kryptonite of paint pigments. It says, fuck you. I don't care whatever color you are, you're mine now.
It's so magical to mix white into that paint.
Oh, it gets so beautiful.
It's like, dude, it's the weirdest thing ever, because when you mix white into like any other hobby paint, it just turns into like dull bullshit. But you mix white into that violet and then like it's like a beautiful purple color. Yeah. It's so freaking dark. It looks like nothing when you paint with it. But when you put a little bit of white in it, it's like, wow, holy shit.
It's one of my favorite colors to start from in doing an interesting shadow for like your deepest shadows, because it's so dark, but yet it's still punchy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and deep underneath the cloak, there's just like this interesting violet in there, but it's not like, it's purple.
But the one you had was garbage.
That one it's kind of in the 50-50 mark. It's not the worst ones, but I know it's not acting like I want it to.
Okay.
It's super thin.
Okay. Well, so now I have even a better one. Okay.
Yeah, but that is something that Francisco's told me was that if your whole mix is fucked, the separation is going to happen, and you're going to have some weird stuff with the final finish too. Okay. So that makes sense that you're experiencing that too. But I'll let you know. But yeah, maybe they figured some stuff out. But I'm optimistic because they do offer something in those paints, specifically that very first line, that I think is truly unique to miniature painting.
Yeah.
And so
there are. I mean, like I always ask the question, why can't you just do the same thing with tube paints? But you can't because they're not thick. They are thick. They're not like soft body paints. So like there's that one other brand that does it, Ultra Krill. But they came along after, Also, Pro Krill does it a little bit as well. Like they do single pigment paints, but that's not their whole shtick. It's like just like a few ones sprinkled into the range.
Yeah, they do have single pigment paints in their range. I do, and they're actually like the Pro Krill ones. I find are like more approachable to the unseasoned. The Chimera ones, you almost have to understand a little bit more about color theory, about how pigments work, about understanding the potency and how these things interact and stuff. But Pro Krill ones are a little bit more approachable. That said, the Pro Krill ones are a lot weaker, compared to these things. Also, when you talk about like a tube paint and stuff, yeah, their pigment load is as high, but when you start diluting it to make it a usable paint, now the pigment load ratio is not on par with the Chimera ones.
Okay, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the Chimera is like, okay, we're going to get it to a more usable miniature painting consistency. And in order to make the pigmentation as powerful as possible, we work it at that consistency and then like double it. They double the pigments in order to make it that much, which is why they're so fucking expensive, I assume. Because they're like $9, $10 a bottle.
Yeah. The whole theory is make your paint as thick, as pigmented, and as saturated as possible, because then if I want to make it less opaque, I can. If I want to make it thinner, I can. If I want to make it less saturated, I can. I can do everything I want with your paint.
Yeah. But when you say as thick as possible, to clarify that, it's thick as possible to be usable in miniature paint.
Sure. Yes, that's important. Yeah.
Because like a paint out of a tube, you can't really, technically you can use it in miniature painting if you want to obscure all the details of your model.
Or if you want to thin it a lot and then suddenly lose a bunch of opacity.
Yeah.
That's the downside, really. Yeah. It needs to be usable. So like a soft body, thick paint.
Yes.
I think they kind of nailed it. With the paint bottles that are actually good and usable, like I like that thickness that they've gotten.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah, all right. Allow me to shill for a moment. I got a new sexy item on the web store. It's a can koozie with a lovely old school Miniac art on it. I discovered these things a year ago, and I'm sure everyone did at some point. But I was just so shocked because I'm a soda sipper. I don't know if you're a soda sipper.
I typically have 2 to 3 cans that sit down in my work area for a week or more.
Okay, I'm not that bad, but I will drink a soda over the course of like an hour or something like that. And I was just so shocked when I first got these insulated cans, and I assume they all work the same way, just how fucking well it works. So anyways, got a soda can in there for the end of the summer. You can put your bubbly in there, put your beer in there, put your soda in there. It'll fit a 12 fluid ounce can. And also, finally, the STLs for the Wood Elves are on the web store. You can buy them as a bundle, all 75 together, all 32 together. You can buy them as individuals. You can also buy them with their masterclass courses bundled together as well, saving money that way as well. That's been a while, long time coming to get that out there, and so I'm happy to finally get it out there. But yeah, new can koozie, new STLs on the web store. Support me, buy my things. Anyways, that's done.
I have a couple more things I want to talk about, and I'm going to end with one that it's kind of something I need to ask you about. But
okay.
As this is being recorded right now, the Nova Open is happening.
Yes, I've seen the pictures. Andy Wardle's there, dude.
Yeah, little Andy. I miss him so much. and that kind of ties into my thought on Nova is like now that it's here. I went last year. I had an amazing experience. It didn't really work for my schedule this year to go. I wish I could go to every single convention, but you have to have balance in your life in that. It didn't happen this year, but I'm really, really sad. and seeing all the cool things that's going on there. And in order to get back at one person that is there at Nova, Vince Venturella, I put out a video today where I shit all over him. And I am not ashamed. Because Vince and I are in the midst of a heated battle of who can paint the best Skaven army. I mean, I pat him on the head when I say, this is a battle, Vince. Okay.
Okay, man. Okay, Tyke.
We just love giving each other shit, but I see that he's there. He's teaching classes. Why? Who knows? But everyone's at Nova. Vince is at Nova. Sam's at Nova. Uncle Adam's at Nova. Little Andy's at Nova. Eric Swinson's at Nova. Big Willie Hanna's at Nova. Everyone but us, I think. Every miniature painter in the planet, all of you that are probably listening to this, you're like, oh yeah, I just got back from Nova. Yeah. Like everybody's there. And we might get into talking about conventions in the main topic. But I wanted to mention that if there's something on your bucket list of attending a certain convention, that Nova in Washington, D.C. is phenomenal. And again, I talked about it last year, but one of the big things that place has over at least the old location at Adepticon is you are walking distance to a bazillion amazing restaurants, everything from cheap all the way up to fancy. And I had the best meal of my life last year when Vince took us to his high school friend's restaurant. She's a restaurateur, and it was like this, there was no signs. It was like in an alley in this like old Aramaic, I don't know, Arabic, I don't know what the word is, doors.
Arabic?
That's the word. And you like open up and there's like these silks hanging from the ceiling and stuff, and this giant tandoori and this fire everywhere. And it was absolutely phenomenal. So he messages me and he's like, oh man, we're going to miss you this year. She opened a new restaurant and I got reservations. And I'm like, fuck!
What's the food?
I don't know. I didn't ask him because it would just make me more sad.
Japanese noodle bar.
Oh God, dude. If it was anything related to Asian cuisine, I would just cry. Other than sushi, because like I eat sushi, but it's like I like cooked food.
Yeah.
So
I struggle with sushi. I feel like it. I don't struggle with it. I enjoy it, but I can't tell the difference between good sushi and bad sushi. It all kind of just tastes like sushi to me. So I just eat the cheap shit.
I've had. I went to a 1-star Michelin star sushi place. And
so not, yeah, I thought at first it was like a shitty sushi place, a 1-star. But no,
Michelin.
that 1-star is a fucking badass star.
Yeah. One of the highest rated sushi places in the world, or excuse me, in the country, not in the world. And I had sushi there, and I can tell you, amazing sushi is not good if you're not a big sushi fan, because it's so fishy.
Oh, sure.
It is like, so strong. Like every flavor is intense and amazing and all this stuff. But if you're just like, oh, that tasted like a fish. It sure does taste like a fish, because it is like, there's the, they're like fucking cutting the fish right in front of you and stuff, and it just like still flopping and whatever. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And then I had a squid dish there. It was raw squid tentacles. And I was like, oh boy, this is a flavor. And then it's like eating bubblegum with the sea. It takes you 40 minutes to chew that stuff.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, if you guys love sushi, I'm kind of jealous because I wish I did. But it's solid. But like a decent sushi place in my town, I was like, I kind of like this better.
Yeah.
I feel bad. The last thing I want to talk about is a question I brought to you, Scott, is because we're going to the state fair on Sunday.
Aha, yes.
My daughter, we're bringing her in, and she's getting judged for her grand champion jam, and she's got to go through all that. And so we're going to have some time at the state fair, and I wanted to ask you recommendations, like what should I eat? Because if left to my own devices, I will eat nothing but cheese curds and mini donuts until I can't walk.
Hey, that works.
But I can get those everywhere, and they're kind of the same, like a good Tom Thumb mini donut, a good high-quality cheese curds. And you know what? There is a massive difference between a good, fair cheese curd and a subpar. These people that go around with their little things to every little fair and stuff that they're, like, not local. Those cheese curds suck balls. You know who you are. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Feel bad. Yeah, no, I got some recommendations. I have been to the state fair 3 fucking times. My wife is an enthusiast. She loves it. She's alive when she's at the state fair, and so it comes around once a year. And she doesn't want to go alone, so I figure, okay, sure, I'll go. I'll eat some fucking shitty food.
Yes.
But yeah, I've been there 3 times. Okay, so the food that we've had. When food is a huge part of our experience there, one standout item is the paella. It's super good.
That nice crispy bottom.
Yeah, it's crispy. You can get it with a side egg up on top if you want. It comes with chorizo in it and chicken. The chicken somehow isn't overcooked. It's really tender. So that was actually really shockingly good. That one was awesome. The other one I had was this thing called, it is a sour cream and onion hummus with a beef bacon that's been sous vide on top of it, green onion, and these tiny little like deep fried like mini pitas that you like dip in the hummus. And so basically like a sour cream and onion hummus. And it was so fucking good. But I can't remember where it was from. It's like a little VW van that was repainted and turned into a restaurant. So that was awesome.
I mean, that'll be hard to miss. I'll be able to know that if I see that.
Okay,
There's not a whole lot of 70s Volkswagen vans.
Yeah, no, you'll definitely see it.
Okay.
There's this freaking donut place.
Okay, I'm in.
Dude, they make basically like Krispy Kreme donuts, but like on crack. They're bigger, they're softer, they're just like better in every way, and like they're so freaking good. But the line is always insane. But like
I don't care.
Okay.
I love donuts. Are my favorite dessert sweet food,
dude,
in the entire world.
I'm really curious if you do get it, what you think about them, because I think they're amazing. They're so good. And then if you like ice cream, even a tiny amount, you have to go to the Dairy Building and get the soft serve. It's just it's like the best ice cream in the world. I think. I don't know. So those are the standouts, I think.
Okay, those are all solid. I think I would eat everything you said there. I think I would eat, especially because like one. It's hard to get a good paella, and it's hard to do. It's hard to make.
It's really good, yeah.
I love a good paella, and I have a paella probably once every 5 years, so it's good to have something different. And then that second dish you said, I'm not a huge hummus fan, but I respect it. I respect the hummus. And that sounds like something I've never eaten before. So I like to have something that's different. If you were going to say, like, get the deep fried Oreos, I'd be like, all right, I will.
Deep fried ranch?
Deep fried ranch?
That's a new thing.
Ranch dressing?
Yeah, I think they freeze a chunk of it and then they batter it.
Fuck.
And they put ranch dressing seasoning on the deep fried triangle. I haven't had it, but I've heard it's not good, and I've heard it's very intensely ranch.
That's the most Midwestern shit I've ever heard.
Dude, I wish they gave you ranch to dip in it. That would be so fucking whack. It's not. I haven't had it because the line is always way too long, and it isn't worth it for like a stunt food. But
you're not having this for like to actually enjoy it. It's just the novelty of it.
Yeah, 100%.
It's probably $8.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we worked our way through this. I will keep my eye out for that VW bus and the long donut line.
Yes.
I would eat anything donuts. There are Twitch chats where I haven't been nicknamed the donut slut.
What the hell?
That's what I'm known as.
Wow.
And they're mini.
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, they're mini painting. There's one in particular that I whenever I join in the Twitch mini painting chat, that is what everyone calls me because I love donuts. Okay, that's enough of that.
All right, get into what we painted. John's a
gonna be quick.
Slacker.
It's gonna be quick.
Yeah.
In my defense, this week was the all editing week, and so I did finish up. I can have Alex show pictures of the final sexy shots of the Claw Lord on Knobbeast. I did finish up his base, and he's 100% painted, so I did finish that up since the last episode. And this week was all editing, so I didn't do much painting. By the time this episode comes out, what I'm going to start today when I get home from the podcast is the French Blood Angel. I believe his name is Le Martes.
Le Martes.
Yeah, he's the dude with the skull face. One of the coolest old sculpt Space Marine. I remember that one distinctly when I first got into the miniature painting, and I was looking for cool Warhammer 40K models to paint, and that dude stood out to me. He's a fucking dude in big Space Marine armor with a skull face. What's not to love? And
It's got like ribbed armor too. Yeah.
And this new version is even more badass. So I'm pumped to paint him. So I'm going home to start. I'm going to build him and get him primed today.
Can I tell you his lore?
Oh, please do.
Okay. So first of all, do you know what the Death Company are?
Just a bunch of people that are dead.
Do you know Blood Angel's shtick? Do you know why they are what they are? Like
they drank blood because they were stuck on a frozen island and they had to drink blood to survive.
Yeah, you're basically right. But basically, they have a thing called the thirst, and they don't want to succumb to it. And the dudes that do succumb to it, they're called the Death Company. And they basically they let them go on one final hurrah. They take their power armor, which is normally red, and they cover it in like tar and black paint. And they go out in one final battle, and they lose it. They lose themselves to the thirst, like drinking blood and all that stuff. And at the end of the battle, guess who makes sure they don't come back?
Oh, Le Martin?
The Executioner.
He kills his buddies?
Yeah.
Oh, so like there was a point there in the lore. I'm like, hey, this is actually some value, because then I was gonna paint him as if he was like had sponge paint on tar on his armor, because that's why his armor is black. But now you're saying his armor is not like that.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like, okay.
Because his armor is black.
Oh, it was red in the previous box art. I mean, it could be black. I mean, it doesn't mean he doesn't kill himself.
That would be, yeah. It's a spoilers.
I mean, copying the box art is never a bad plan. Like, so don't rely on me. But I know that's what he does. He does lop the heads off of Death Company if they survive the battle they go into.
Oh wow! So like you're holding out as long as possible, to not suck the blood. Whose blood did they suck? The people that they kill in battle, or just like a random like Tracy? She's walking down the street.
Yeah. Tracy, the secretary.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Succumb to the thirst.
Yeah, every time like she walks by to make copies, they're all like stick their heads down and like, oh fuck, Tracy, you look delicious.
I'm assuming it's something just like that.
Yeah. Okay. It's like if Warhammer met The Office, that would be the sitcom. It's just a bunch of blood angels in The Office.
I want to know who the equivalent of Michael Scott is in the Blood Angels chapter.
Yeah, I don't know enough.
We're not qualified. Yeah, we're not qualified to answer this question.
Who's the dumbass leader? People can put it in the comments. Who's the most dumbass like leader of a chapter?
Who's the stupidest Space Marine? I don't think that's the thing. Is that there are none. They're fucking.
They can't.
They're
Like
awesome.
they're all so fucking generic and boring. It's just like they're all Superman.
Yeah, where's the dumb one? Come on, give me the dumb one.
Superman doesn't have a personality. That's why he's the most lame superhero, because he's just so boring.
That's fair.
And I feel like they try to manufacture. They're all bad good guys. They're all the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
They're super cool. Yeah. Trust me, they're cool. So
trust us.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Gilliman would have, he'd kind of be cross-eyed a little bit. He'd just be like, guys, it's time to go. That's kind of sounded like that was like a bad impersonation of who's the president of the United States right now?
Biden,
Joe Biden. Guys, where am I?
Yeah, it kind of actually does sound like him.
The thing is, what was the question?
I just get so depressed thinking about that. No. I just avoid thinking about that as much as possible. The upcoming election.
Well, he's hanging it up. He's, I said, old Joe, it's time to go.
Took him out to pasture.
All right. So I also painted, I talked about starting my little bit of FDM journey. And so I printed, this was one of the free things. So on My Mini Factory, if you look up Hexengard, HEXENGARDE. He's got a free STL file, and it's this one, and it's also every one of the buildings that he does has two versions. It's the building and then the ruined version, and this is the ruined version, obviously, because I thought it would be cooler for Age of Sigmar and stuff. It's like you can get onto the terrain, you can get into it, you're fighting in a ruined city and stuff. Also really sweet for Mordheim. And
the Mordheim dream lives on.
The Mordheim dream is, it's one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, one day I'm going to have a solid gold toilet seat. Like, you're never actually going to have that, but you're just kind of like, oh yeah, someday I'm going to be so rich.
Yeah. It's enough just to tell yourself that.
Yeah. So, this is, chipping away at it. So I printed another bigger building that's like 3 stories and wild. And it's kind of like, looks like it's out of a Tim Burton film. A lot of them have a bit of that. This is the one, the milder version ones. But I was I did some research, and by research I mean watch YouTube videos on FDM printing on like prep and cleanup and stuff. And I'm like, I ain't doing anything that takes a lot of work. But there's actually these kinds of 3M sanding sponges that you can get at Home Depot and stuff that I already owned, that they're angle ones. So they kind of look like they're about the size of a deck of cards, and they're spongy. And the sides of them, the angles aren't straight. They're at like a 45. So you can use them to, like, one on the big side, you can just kind of sand down, and then you can use the corners to kind of get it into bits. And then I used this Rust-Oleum automotive filler plus sandable primer in one, which is that.
Did you do it to this thing?
Yes, it's got that on there. And so I just did a quick sand because I'm like, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time, and there still are layer lines and stuff. But then I coated that thing with that, because it's kind of hard to tell because it's actually the FDM, or the plastic that I use to print, is a gray, and then that primer is gray. So
yeah, a little tricky.
It's harder to tell, but it does a decent job of kind of like getting into some smaller details in some of those layer lines. It doesn't do a perfect job, but the quality of the print in terms of FDM, like, that is so much better than the stuff from 5-10 years ago, the quality of the printers, and very, very minimal cleanup there. I'm like, I want to do, like, this is an example of the quickest. That was like 2 minutes of sanding, and then just hose the thing down with the primer. And I was like, okay, it's not bad, especially on the tabletop. There's enough definition of these interesting shapes. You get some color on there. I think a big part of it's going to be in the approach to painting it, of not using techniques where you're using angles, whether airbrushing at an angle or dry brushing, to over accentuate.
Yeah.
So I think you need to come straight on, like with an airbrush or with an aerosol can and stuff. So you're hitting it, not accentuating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Or like washing and stuff like that. Like anything that's gonna highlight the texture. I kind of agree. You could even go so far as like put some moss on this roof.
Yeah.
Like actually just something to literally physically cover up some of the layer lines, because yeah, they're still there. They're definitely still there. But like, what are the alternatives here? Like printing it in like resin is gonna use so much freaking resin, and you're still gonna get like some kind of layer lines on there depending on the orientation. But yeah, it's not perfect yet. But it is. You're right. It is way better than it used to be.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like, yes, nothing's going to be as good as like the plastic GW terrain or other plastic terrains like the lasers, Dungeons and Lasers and stuff that actually make really nice plastic terrain. It's not going to be good as that, but you get the availability of anything you can think of that someone's made files for that really fits your niche or what exactly you envision and stuff like that. You don't have access to every single thing, and the uniqueness to it, and the cost. Like, it's not that expensive. I can print a shitload of that terrain per $30 spool of FDM filament.
Yeah, I used to. So a long time ago, when FDM printing first came out, they used to soften and smooth layer lines using a vapor bath. Basically, you would get like
I saw that.
You saw that? Do they still do that?
I watched some videos on it, and the problem is like it universally melts. Like it reactivates and melts it.
Yeah.
And I could try it, but I feel like from the stuff that they showed and they did, like it looked like you put it in the microwave. Like it's like everything is just kind of like fuzzed.
Okay. I wonder if you could like take acetone, because like honestly, everything is good. The only thing that's offending, and is the roof tiles, right?
Yes.
So what if you just like took, instead of like sanding? I mean, maybe there's some things you save with sanding here that I'm not noticing, but like, what if you just like painted these with like acetone? Like one layer. Like, what would that even do? But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but,
and because then it's like the chemical reaction happens and you can't stop it, right? You have to hope that it evaporates at the right rate for how much you put on, and that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, or maybe you can use other variables. Like I put like one brush over each of the things, and then I put it in front of a fan.
Yeah.
Things like that to expedite if it's melting too much stuff. But you're right. Yeah, that's the main culprit here. And I thought about that. Like I was like, I could just do a quick brush on of that. But then seeing that they just did, like, they don't even let it touch the thing that it's melting. Like, it's just in a like a plastic tub above it.
Yeah.
It's near it.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
melts it. And I'm like, man, if I put it directly on, this whole thing's just going to be like, it's going to look like fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end of the movie, you know?
Just more ruined building, you know?
It's true. It's even more ruined. So that's what I painted. What you got here?
I painted Eden Versio, so I had her face done last time, and then I did another little paint session on Twitch, and then last night I painted for like 45 minutes just to finish her up. And it was a kind of an experiment in using different color temps for black that I want to talk about in the extended portion. I definitely messed around with that before when I painted Jon Snow a long time ago from the A Song of Ice and Fire range. But I did it again here just to make some of those different parts look unique, because Eden has like dark brown hair, black glossy armor, and she's supposed to have a black undersuit, and I didn't really get that really well. But that's a very difficult paint job to like paint and have it look good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can do things like dry brush it with gray and you know then slap a wash on it, or like just do contrast paint and then it looks kind of okay. But if you want the black to look kind of look good, it's challenging to make it look good and not spend a ton of time.
The first thing I noticed that drew my eye that I really liked before you even started talking was I really love the cold black versus the warm black.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
It certainly differentiates her cloth versus the armor.
Yeah.
It really works.
I'm glad that's coming across. That's definitely the intention.
And it's always hard to determine how high you highlight up, because it's still got to read as black.
Yeah.
You still need to define the shapes, and you still need to add some level of cold or warm to it, and you hit it.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you can't even tell that a gray is a warm color until like you put a cold color or a neutral color next to it. It's like, is this enough? And so I'll often like add too much. Like at some points, her gray looked brown, but then it kind of sorted itself out. So yeah, it's a little bit difficult to tell unless you like kind of contextualize the colors next to each other. Yeah. But I'm pretty happy. Overall, the experience of painting a Legion model was like really great. Like I said last time, I think her head is a little bit too big. Even in this painted state, it feels a little kind of goofy.
It's about 15% too big.
Yeah, I think it needs to be a little bit smaller. But that being said, there were eyelids. I could see them upper and lower. I could see the eye. I could see the nose. I can see the mouth. Everything is visible, paintable that I want to be paintable in a face. And then the model is very restrained. There isn't detail all over it, which is awesome. So it was like a really enjoyable, quick paint job. Like I didn't have to labor over it. So definitely looking forward to painting just kind of more Legion models as one-offs. Also, I don't know why I didn't just glue the fucking model to the base and prime it all and like stick this to double-sided tape as opposed to sticking just the model's feet to double-sided tape and then priming that. So now I have just like an unprimed base that I glued her to.
Whoops.
Whatever. But yeah, she's done, and I'm definitely looking forward to painting up some more of Inferno Squad.
I mean, don't feel bad about that, because that's a prime example of a really obvious no doy that I find myself doing sometimes. I'm like, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking at all. Why did I just make more work for myself?
I do that all the time while I'm editing. I'll go down a path, and I'm like, fuck. And it's like, I don't want to backpedal at this point. So I'll just like deal with the problem for like the rest of the video. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel that. That's all we painted. It's been a week since our last episode, so not a lot of time has passed. But let's get into the main topic, which is some more wonderful viewer submitted questions.
Yeah, we have a bunch of really good ones that have been coming through that under the viewer submissions. So if you are a member of the Trapped Under Plastic Patreon, there's a number of things that you get as a thank you for doing that, including an extended version of the podcast, 20 to 30 minutes longer, called The After Party. And you get access to that for every single one, both video and audio format. You also can submit your models for critique that we go over in that after party, and we shit on your models and we tell you why you suck.
Lovingly.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you say so. And then you can submit topics. You can ask us questions and submit topics for the podcast, and that's what we have here. We got some ones that are great questions, but not necessarily full ball sack questions that would take an entire episode. So we got 3 or 4 of them here that we're going to get through today. And the first one comes to us from Noah Klosinski.
You nailed it.
Got it. First try. All right, Noah, what do you got for us? It says, what to do if you lose interest midway through painting an army, board game, or other large project?
That's a pretty common feeling that I think a lot of us experience, just not even in the hobby, just all over. I have like a 90% finished, like refurbished like dresser in my garage that I just haven't like put the last layer of finish on, you know? So yeah, I definitely feel that. Do you have any things that you start and never finish?
I'm gonna start right off with board games. Don't fucking paint them. These days, board games come with so many goddamn minis that it's like it is a fruitless endeavor. Now there
How
are
many Massive Darkness minis do you have? You think? Hundreds.
Closer to 800 than it is
Oh my God.
200. And how many have I painted? Like 3. Like there is exceptions here. So if a game has got a lot of replayability, a great example of this is Kingdom Death, and they're mostly boss fights, so you're not painting the seas of endless goblins and stuff, and the models are high quality, those are awesome and worth painting. I do that. Also, if it's a game whose models you can multi-use, a great example is Dungeons and Dragons, right? So that was my reasoning for Massive Darkness, is there were so many models would be great for D&D. And it just was too many models. It's like backing a fucking Reaper Kickstarter where you get 7,000 models, and like there's like 2 people alive that ever paint 50% or more of those, and so you are just setting yourself up to say, I'm never going to get through this, and you're going to crash and burn. So be careful and set your expectations realistically for board games, and don't back a whole bunch of Kickstarters with the thought of painting all the models before you've gotten one, painted some of it, and realize what's actually going to happen. Now, if you back a bunch of Kickstarters because you really want to play the game, like my buddy Dan does, and we play board games every Saturday night, and without the intention of painting them, then that's a different animal, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, you have to be realistic. And that's kind of part of it. You're playing this game of chicken, right? Where it's like, how much time am I going to invest in this single thing so that I can finish the whole thing and also enjoy it, right? There's like this intersection of like effort, and that's very difficult to find sometimes, and you have to just kind of be realistic. So you can paint like one model, kind of get a gauge. Okay, that took me 45 minutes, took me 2 hours, took me 5 hours, and then you can think, do a little bit of math, okay? If that took me 5 hours and I have 40 of these jabronis to paint, is that going to work out? Probably not. But what do you do when that happens? I don't know, man. You fucking move on to a new project.
Yeah. You lie to yourself and you say, I'm going to come back to this. I just need a little break. We need time apart. It's not you, it's me.
I made a video about it. I think called my biggest hobby shame, which is like all of my work in progress minis. I feel like I was never that kind of person, but turns out I absolutely am. I've been that kind of person for years.
This whole time.
So yeah, I have like a ton of whip models that I've never finished. So Noah, when you figure out the answer, you can let me know.
Yes. I will say, because I'm kind of in the midst of this right now with my Skaven army, and it wasn't because I lost steam for it. This is part of the game we play. I took a break from it to do a video on Infinity, and then I did a video on Kingdom Death, and now I just taking time away, I find, whether it's purposeful or not, really can suck your momentum. And it's harder to gain that back once it's kind of come to a crawl or a complete stop to restart it, because you had all this aspirations, and you get the good endorphins from finishing a model and finishing a unit and seeing it getting closer to completion, that if you slow that down or stop that for a while, it's harder to gain that back. And so what I did was like, look, I want to paint the most unique, interesting kind of figurehead for the spearhead, which is the big dude, rat on rat. And I'm back in. Like, that's all it took for me to be like, okay, now I got some momentum back. I can see the end. I did the hardest model. I'm completed the hardest thing that I'm going to have to do for this project. And it was fun to do. I enjoyed it. I picked that one, not because it was the hardest. I picked that one because it was the one that excited me the most. So just like if you lose momentum, paint something else, paint something that excites you. Because at least you're getting something painted and you're having fun doing it. And if you're having fun while you're doing it, you're more likely to come back to it. But find the thing that excites you most when your momentum is at its lowest. And that will get you back into a project, I've found. So, and now I just have this overwhelming feeling of like, I don't know where the time is going to come for me to finish the rest of the Spearhead before Vincy Con. But I have like not even 10 models left, 9 models, something like that.
And we're going in October or something?
Yeah, middle of October.
There's like a whole month and a half until that happens.
I know, but then I'll blink my eyes and it'll be a month, and then I'll blink my eyes and it'll be 2 weeks. And then also between now and then, because I want to work on Golden Demon project while I'm at Vince's. I just find that that's a great start for me to really crack into a Golden Demon project. So I'm going to be prepping for that, figuring that out. You know, that's going to happen between now and then while I'm there. So yeah, I'm still going to do it because I need to beat Vince. But
you know, people have always said these types of things help with getting big projects done, and they absolutely do. So just to kind of repeat it, having a deadline is amazing. So I play a lot of Imperial Assault. I don't play a lot of it, but I've routinely played Imperial Assault with my friends, and it's really helpful to have like a weekend where we plan to like go through an entire expansion in like a weekend. And so like that's a very motivating force to like have that like event approaching, just like VincyCon is for finishing your Spearhead, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like plan like a session to play the board game, or the D&D session that uses the models you're painting, or a game at a store for the army you're painting, or whatever it may be. And like you should up the ante, you know, tell people that you are going to have painted models, you know. I find that, I mean, maybe it's just because of Midwestern guilt, but when I commit to something and put it out there in the internet, I'm like way more encouraged to finish it done because there's something kind of on the line, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of a way to hack your brain. Is it good? Is it healthy? I don't fucking know, but it kind of works. And also, you don't have to finish the entire thing. You know, if you just show up with progress done, and each time you have an event and you show up with progress done, eventually it'll get done. So this last time I played Imperial Assault, I didn't paint the entire fucking board game, but I painted a lot of the terrain features, some of the cooler NPCs that got played, and maybe next time I'll paint the characters. So it's just like take it in bite-sized chunks, and also give yourself a goal to work toward, because that's kind of exciting too. Also, if you can get someone else to work on the goal with you at the same time in parallel, that's super exciting. Like having a friend kind of in the shit with you. So
Yes.
those are common answers.
Yes. One final thing I will say that I have learned is that there is any big project, there is this mysterious point that you can never determine exactly before you start the project, where you will lose all of your energy to paint that thing. And you don't know when that time is. You don't know how many models, how many hours, how many months, or whatever it's going to be. But that point will come for all of us. That doesn't mean you're never going to paint it again, but it'll mean like you will lose all that momentum you've had to in excitement to paint that project. And if you're the kind of person that you're going to get bored quickly, don't put a ton of time into each model.
Yeah.
You have to understand that moment's going to come, and you'd rather have, depending on the size of the project, you'd rather have it most of the way done, or basically just crossing the finish line, or the finish line is on the horizon and you can see it when you feel that moment. But again, the issue is you don't know exactly when that's going to be. You can, as you've done more big projects through your painting career, you'll get a stronger feeling. You'll get a gut feeling about how much time you have. And so you need to be prepared and say, you are not a unique unicorn in this, that you, unlike every other painter ever, are never going to get tired of this army or this giant project.
I'm going to paint my Space Marine army like heavy metal does. I'm going to be the one. It's like, okay, sure, guy.
Yeah, there's a reason you don't see those.
Yeah.
I think Darren Latham's the only one that has one of those. But yeah, it's because like finding a balance in being realistic with yourself on achievable things. And then also maybe taking that into account with the way you plan out your steps. The more you can kind of pre-plan, these are the steps of for each unit or for each model. It's like, this is my recipe for skin. This is the recipe for the cloaks. This is how I'm going to do the basing and all of this. The more you can pre-plan that, the more you can work in getting them to like 75% of the way that you're happy with as fast as possible. So then you have them all painted to 75%. You don't love them. They're not the favorite thing you've ever painted. But the way you've set up your system is that last 25% you can go back and do at your leisure, as you're able to, as you're excited. Maybe you just do it for the heroes or whatever. But you have a fully painted, looking good army or board game or whatever, big project, and you don't hit that wall and half of it's painted. So you know that you can always go back.
Yeah, we discussed this last time, but painting an army and painting a large model or a large project, it's a skill you have to learn. Seeing the whole process from start to finish is very valuable because you have a better idea about how long it takes you and what the outcome is, and then you can adjust based on that. And so it's the same thing for this question as well. Having skill in finishing something is very important to understand how you can change it in the future. So honestly, it's better to shoot low for quality just to get it done for done's sake so that you have a better idea about how much time it takes you to get maybe a better result instead of shooting for a better result and then just coming up short.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. I got to pee, and then we can go on to the next one.
All right.
All right, what's the next question, Scott? The next question is how to get your local hobby store to arrange a painting competition / event, or how to help facilitate one. This is from Nick Hale from Arizona. Hale. That's a great question. I mean, I kind of feel like it's to their, it's for their benefit, you know? Like you are essentially doing the work for them that an employee that's paid would do. And presumably the event brings in people buy stuff. And so there really isn't anything to lose. So part of it is phrasing this to your local store in such a way that they understand that, right? Don't overpromise. You're not going to be like, I'm going to bring in 1,000 people and they're going to buy stuff. It's going to be amazing. But like, you want to share your enthusiasm for a thing while also telling the people that you want to work with what you can do for them, right? So part of it is conveying that. Yeah, I got some steps. I've gone through this, especially early on in my miniature painting journey. I did this a couple times at a couple different stores. And there's a number of key things that I learned. The first thing is that you have to identify the employee there that is going to be your advocate. So that's the person that plays Warhammer. That's the person that paints miniatures. That's the person that you're going to say, hey, I'd like to do this, and they're going to be the ones that are going to help you. So if you're like most hobby stores, going to the dude that's like they're in charge of their Magic the Gathering and card games is not the right person. And if you don't know them well enough, maybe you're not a regular there or you just haven't figured this out, this is the first thing you need to identify. You need to find who is that person because that person is so valuable. Now, when you then approach that person with this kind of offer, you want to be clear that you are going to be shouldering a good amount of the load. And this is a big part of this, is that they're typically short-staffed at your average game store. The amount of things that they have to do in a day or a week in order to keep everything going is just about all they have time for. So you want to make their life easy for them by shouldering some of the more difficult things, but in return, they're going to see that value. And then when you come with the ask of what your expectations are of them, then they're going to be more willing to be on board. And so you're not asking for a ton of their time, but what they need to offer is what's going to be valuable and make it happen. So identify that person and then approach them and have your ducks fairly in a row when you go there, so they know you're serious and they know that you've put thought into this, and this means that you're gonna make it a reality rather than just, everyone goes to meetings at work where the whole point of the meeting was just to have a meeting, and there's no like takeaways of action and next steps outside of meetings. That just drove me fucking crazy in the corporate world. I'm like, well, we just wasted an hour and there's no takeaways here for us to actually put into action. So you're going to go in there with an action plan. And here are some key things that I think are valuable. As part of the miniature painting competition, what they'll do is each competitor will have to buy the mini from the store. So boom, okay, they're making money. So you have to come in, you sign up to join the painting competition, and you buy the mini here. That way, when you do it, the competitors have signed up. They can see that you have not pre-painted this and spent 6 months on it, this specific model, and they're making money. And that way they know this competition runs from September 1st to October 15th, and you have in that window to come in and buy the mini. They'll write down what the mini was and your name or whatever. So they're making money, right? And then typically I'd say don't ask people to spend more money to join it. It's not like $5 extra, at least at the beginning, because you want the bar of entry to be low, that everybody feels included and welcome. Whether it's a 10-year-old kid or it is a veteran painter, you want everyone to feel included. And a part of that is to have separate categories, right? You can have a 15 and under category. You can have a new painter category, and then you can have an advanced painter category. Keep them separate. Even if you only get 8 people in there and it's like 2, 3, and 3, that's still 8 people, and nobody feels like they didn't stand a chance before it started, so they didn't enter. You don't want that. So you kind of figure out the basic diagram. You'll even say, I can often part for this, especially for the first one, is if you don't know other people, you might be the one that's going to be judging them. You can ask the person that works at the store to help judge. We could try to find another person. Maybe there's a local, commission painter or something like that. That maybe that commission painter is in the advanced category and he'll help judge the kids in the basic and that kind of thing. So you may end up having to help judge that, which is part of getting this thing rolling. Your goal in this is not for this to be a one and done. You want to get this plane into the air. So then hopefully then it's less work. You can step away and you can just see the painting community kind of grow and flourish around this. So that's important. The next thing, your big ask from the store, and you're going to try to find creative ways as well. This may be including you doing some networking with other gamers, painters, people in the local area, that store and others, is you need to find a way to get the word out. And you need the store's help for that. You say, I will make up flyers, okay? I will send you an email with the description for you to post on the store's website, for you to put on the store's Facebook group. Find the local Facebook groups that are Warhammer or RPG groups or mini painting groups, whatever. You need it out virtually. And we even would go to like the local community college and we put flyers on bulletin boards there. Try to find creative ways, or you're going to have to do a little bit of legwork to get the word out. Because if you're only relying on people that are there on the regular or people that you know specifically, you are selling yourself short for the potential for this to grow. Again, you're trying to get this to be something that's much bigger than this very first one. But you need to start somewhere. And the more you can get it organized in the front end for this first one, the more it'll be there. And then as the store sees the value, as the store sees that there's 10, 15, 20 people joining, and each of them is buying a mini, and then store also needs to be responsible for having some place for these to be on display, right? And then that have a basket for people for the public vote. That kind of thing. Get other people that are in the store involved. Let them see that there's value to that store in addition to the other things they're doing. Let them look at the cool models. You'll sell more models as a store when you see people's cool painted griffins and dragons and space marines in their case that local people painted. It's good for them, but they need to also offer up a place where this can be on display and showcased. That's my initial kind of the things that I learned and didn't do them all right away, but I thought were valuable. The most important one of all of those to me, is having the stores buy in and making sure that there's somebody there that is a advocate for this and will mention it to customers that are in there playing games, buying paints, doing whatever, that they're the words on the street, that they're the ones that are like, hey, hey, we're having this coming up. You should please, we'd love it if you'd join us or whatever. And it's like, oh, you can get one of those D&D minis that are like $4 and paint that up or whatever you're already going to paint for your next game, whatever you still need to thinking about starting a new army or something for a new Underworld warband that you thought looked cool or whatever you want, things you're going to do anyway, things you're going to buy anyway. And then because the store has this, they've brought in money, they're getting some excitement. Ideally, they offer some kind of gift certificate reward for prizes. So I think ours were like $25 for the winners of each youth, beginners, and advanced or something like that. And the thing you want to tell them there is, you give them a $25 gift certificate, they're going to spend $40+ when they come back on hobby stuff. So you're still making money. And it's kind of community give back to do that. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's a ton of solid advice. To kind of just add a little bit more to that, just because of the conversations I've had with Dan and stuff like that. If you're trying to find the person who is going to be your hobby advocate, oftentimes they're the employee that is answering the questions in that section of the store. So if you have a question about a hobby product, they'll be the one that comes and helps. They're often the one that's the buyer for that part of the store. Like they're restocking the sections and organizing it. So that makes it easier to find. And also, like, I think another huge concern from game stores is that you're going to put on an event that's, kind of dog shit. So whatever you can do to show them that you have your act together and that you have a plan and that you have like a certain like level of quality you're going to deliver on, that's going to make them feel like giving up the space that may be better used for, say, like, like a sealed draft for a TCG that they want to run. That's also profitable, and one of their employees would do that. Just so, to kind of show them that you have a plan. Show them other events that have been run in a similar way that you want to mimic. Show them maybe ideas for categories, maybe even like, you don't need to like go through a rubric, but just showing them that you have invested in this and that like you are kind of committed to a certain level of quality is going to make them feel better about giving the reins over of their property and their time to a person who isn't employed by them and doesn't really take feedback from them, like, because they're not on payroll. So those are some ways just to make that go a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah. Another thing you can do if you wanted to be a true go-getter, get gold plus stars, is I thought of this because I see where you're from, Nick, which is Arizona, is there's a little miniature-based company called Monument Hobbies that's out of Arizona. And you may be surprised to learn, no matter where you live, that there is some hobby-related business that is somewhat local to you, even if they're an hour or 2 hours away. If you send out an email and say, and usually you'd want to be doing this after you've gotten to feel that you could make it a reality within a store. You don't want to ask a company for some kind of a support if it kind of falls on its face first. So you want to feel like you're feeling positive about this becoming a reality, and you can reach out if there's a local game manufacturer, if there's a paint manufacturer, if there's something like that that's local. It could even be like a local brewery that does game nights. Those are pretty popular, where they have like D&D nights or Magic the Gathering nights or whatever, and say, hey, we're doing this thing, and kind of explain it to them, show them the flyers. And part of that is like, can we post the flyers here? But also, would you be willing to have some kind of community support for this? Most companies, even small companies, do build into their budget community give back, community engagement into their budget, which is tax deductible for them. So if they give out $50 or $100 in gift cards to their local brewery to use as prizes that you can chop up in $25 increments, that a lot of places will be willing to do that. So that's, again, showing the legwork. And maybe when you first go to the store, as you show them the flyer on your tablet or physical printed out of like, oh, this is just kind of a mock-up. This is what we're thinking. As you're walking through the steps with them, what you're going to do, and showing the work that you've done, that's another thing you can mention. Like, I think reaching out to Fantasy Flight Games, here's a local one here in the Twin Cities, or something like that, and be like, I want to reach out to them. I'm going to talk about their support, community support, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's all valuable stuff. Again, you have to really be saying this is something I want to see in the world and do the work to do it, though. I mean, it's not a massive amount of work, but it is work, and you're taking responsibility for that. So
yeah, and also not all events are going to be like painting competitions, so maybe it makes sense to start with something that's just simpler. Like if you want to demo a game, for instance, just on one day of the week, maybe even a weekday, you can show up and do that. And you can begin to develop a relationship with a game store. And then once they kind of figure out that you're a good guy or a good gal, then they'll be more willing to let you do larger events. Or heck, just being in the store and participating in events there already, so you're not some random person. That's a great way to develop a relationship with game store employees and be able to get your foot in the door to do larger, cool things like that.
yeah, and piggybacking on existing, typically successful events is a really good thing. I know that my buddy Derek, who is the Warhammer All-Star in our local community, one thing he did is for his 40K tournaments, I typically go and help judge Best Painted Armies. What he started to do is also do a single model painting competition at each of their tournaments, and you don't need to be a part of the tournament to enter one of your models.
No, that's cool.
It's
yeah.
very low bar of entry. It is like there's no time limit or whatever. A lot of the guys that are there playing the tournaments, they'll pick the model that they painted for their army that they're the most proud of, and they enter it in that. And then we have a dozen more people that just come in and they drop off their model in the morning, and they can pick it up in the afternoon, and they're all judged. And that's the kind of thing where you're like, okay, maybe this is the way we can kind of piggyback off something that's existing, and then maybe it evolves into something on its own, but you get a little momentum, and you get people that are already actively painting for their hobbies to learn about what you can grow.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, you mentioned how you like put flyers at like colleges and stuff like that. You can think about like where you're going to find your best target audience. Obviously, like Facebook groups and Discord servers, those are great ideas. Even like the art department at a college is not a bad idea. Other game stores, if they're cool with it, like you don't need to go into detail about how like you are financially supporting the store that's doing it. You could just go into a game store and be like, hey, I'm running a competition over at, X, Y, and Z. So I wonder if I could put a flyer for that competition in your door. And then they'd be like, yes or no. Like those are areas where you're going to find the most hobbyists, the highest concentration of people. Like don't put it on like a street pole on Snelling, you're not going to get anyone, but where the geeks are, that's where you want to put the advertisements.
Yeah. Yep, that's good. If you really want to go out there, and I only say this because this was something that was approached to me recently, is that there's a local alternative high school and in my town, and the art teacher somehow found out about me and sent me an email. And she's like, could you come and talk to my kids? About what you do and YouTube and miniature painting and stuff. And so I'm scheduled. I'm going to go out there and we're going to do a little chat, which will take me back to my old job. I used to talk in front of kids a lot, my old job. But if there's a way that you could get in front of middle school kids are a great age. Middle school, because it's before high school where there's like, oh, they're too cool for school kind of thing. But even then, there's all sorts of nerdy clubs. Maybe there's a D&D club. That's a common thing these days in high schools and middle schools. And, just go into the high school and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. I'd like to talk to, see if you can do that. See what's the teacher that's in charge of the club, or talk to the art teacher. Find a way, because kids are a lot more likely to be wowed and excited and interested. And that's, get them on a path of nerddom their whole life is a great thing.
All right. That was our answer to the question. Hope it was enough, Nick Hale. On to James English.
Is that curtain engineered, Jake?
That might be.
I think that might be Jakey Poo.
Might be applesauce. All right. He asks this: when do you decide to experiment, or do you treat every model as an experiment, or is it just practice? I must admit that I treat nearly every model as an experiment and practice in some form. For example, trying to stipple highlights, build up to extreme highlights versus trying to glaze, etc. Yeah. I think
this is a fucking question right here, dude.
Yeah, and I think this is what we reference in the title and thumbnail of this video. This is one of the most essential things that you can do to improve at miniature painting, like over a long period of time. It's just like constantly experimenting while you're painting, but not just experimenting, like really like thinking about the outcome of what you tried and like what was worth it, what was not worth it, and stuff like that. Because sometimes I feel like because like I juggle a lot of things while I'm painting models, making a video, maybe doing a live stream, trying to be entertaining, that I'll just experiment for the sake of experimentation, but that is not helpful. It's very helpful when you like actually are thinking about what you're doing and what is happening, maybe even notating what's happening so you have an easier time remembering. But yeah, it's important just to not do it for the sake of it, but to really be intentional about what you're doing and also about the outcome. So that's the first thing that I want to say.
Yeah. I will say that this is probably the biggest aspect of importance in miniature painting that is not talked about enough. You talk to any miniature painter that when we're standing around the Golden Demon cases and I'm looking at stuff that is in the running for Slayer Sword, and I'm talking to Lil Andy Wardle, or I'm talking to Richard Gray, or I'm talking to Sam Lenz, and what we end up talking about and pointing to their model and talking about the things, it's always talking about this thing that they did that they weren't sure how it was going to turn out, or they were experimenting with this, or this was, I had no idea going into this how this was going to turn out. That is like 75% of the conversations. And when I realized that like, oh, so you're saying you don't wait until you're awesome at something to do it to the best of your abilities when it's all on the line. What you do is you just do that all the time. Everything is an excuse to just try to solve the problem, try to figure out a new approach, a different way. Is it the ideal way? Is the way that I'm just kind of going to default to going to be what I think could give me the best outcome? And that doesn't mean you're just going to like spend more time. That doesn't always mean that like I'm just trying the hardest possible approach to this, that I'm going to do everything with NMM with 4 reflections and bounce lights and all this. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is just understanding, and I think we can all relate to this, and this is kind of the core to it. Every model is its own new problem to be solved, or series of problems. No two models are the same, even if it's a unit of 10 clan rats. Each of those has a different pose. They have a different series of questions that you need to find answers to. And to think that I've painted a Space Marine before, so this next Space Marine is going to be the exact same and it will be no different and I will have no new issues or no new problems, is you're kind of selling yourself short for part of the excitement and the fun and the satisfaction of this. And we all know that like every time it's a new model, you sit down, you look at it, you get it primed, and you're like, I can't envision in my head how this is entirely going to go. Everybody feels that. Every model is that way. So every time it's the first time. And that's part of the most beautiful things about this hobby, is that every time it's the first time. And just embrace that and know that I'm going to try something a little different, or I'm going to have to find a way to approach this. And I'm going to be willing to midstream change directions, try something different. Okay, glazing this looked a little funny. Oh, it's not as bright as I wanted it to be. How do I bring that brightness back? How do I try to add more depth of color? How do I, make sure that this metal reads as metal and that kind of thing? And so if you approach every model as an excuse to try something new, and that's not something big, that's not something you've never done before in any capacity, but just understanding that you're going to try something new because this is a unique model, and to pay attention. That's a big thing that Scott said that I can attest to, is like, take a step back. Look, how did that work? Do I need to do more? Do I need to change it up? Do I really like it? What did I do that allows me to really like it? Make a mental note of that at the very least. I don't tend to write a bunch of stuff down in my miniature painting.
Neither do I, yeah.
Yeah. But when you do something and it looks good, and you take that moment, in the moment, to realize this was the thing that I did that put it over the top that I haven't done before, or I didn't go far enough before, that'll stick with you and you'll remember it. And more of those things will kind of be locked in your tackle box of painting tools that you can then pull out in future models without having to overthink or sit there and stare at the model before you pick up a paintbrush.
Yeah, and I think there are levels to this because, like, if you are doing extreme experimentation all the time, that can get really exhausting. So like, and you kind of alluded to this, like, you know, every single model isn't like a super big experiment where like you're trying out a new thing you've never done before. Like, I've never done NMM. I'm going to paint an entire knight armor worth of NMM. It's like, no, you're not going to do that. Like, that's the same thing as trying to paint a whole board game worth of models in like a weekend. Like, it's like you're going to get burnt out and then you're never going to want to paint NMM again. So it's like they're really small little tests, you know. It's like, okay, when I feather, normally I just use water. I'm going to try out using Lamy and glazing medium this time and see what happens. Or normally when I mix highlights, I use Vallejo Sunny Skin Tone. Well, this time I'm going to use ice yellow. I'm going to use an off-white blue. I'm going to use an off-white green. Like, what happens when I just sub out one paint for another one? Or I really like Chimera's the red. What happens if I just go and buy a bottle of Bold Pyrrole from the Blick art store? You know, like, how is that different? You know, so it's like those are really small, palatable experiments that you can do that don't like really kind of take you out of it, don't exhaust you, and just allow you to make very small improvements with every single model. And also, those are small things you can do that aren't going to change your scheme a lot. So if like all you do is paint a lot of armies and stuff like that, and you're concerned about like, hey, I want it to kind of look the same. Well, like if you use Lamy and medium instead of water to feather, it ain't going to change shit about the way the model looks. So there are a lot of ways you can test things out without having to really affect the outcome too much.
That's such a good point. If you like, I'm going to learn NMM and I bought this 75 millimeter person in armor and I'm going to do the whole thing, you are bound to get frustrated, and you might have gotten like the one piece of the chest plate or just the sword blade to look pretty darn good, and that should be your victory. But you decided to do this whole model, and you are bound to get frustrated and to stop or to phone it in or to leave that experience with a negative perception that will shy you away from trying it more. And every model being one tiny little different thing. Or like, I did do wet blending a while ago and I kind of it was a mess. I'm going to try it a little bit here and just try to wet blend the base coats of this cloak.
Yep.
Just do that little bit.
Just the one part. Or the NMM shoulder armor. Like, find a model that's not totally metal, has just small little details, and try that there.
Yes. Yeah. Just doing a model that just is wielding one sword and that's the only model on it. That's the one to try an MM on, because it feels more obtainable, and then you feel like you'll feel the victory without feeling the overwhelming feeling of like, I have to replicate this over all these other shapes.
Yeah. A sword is a great example as well, because so many people have painted swords before. And so really you just got to kind of try to copy what they do. Try to kind of live in their skin and see like, okay, what does it feel like to really get a blend like that? And like all these little weird things that I see, like be an observer. It's like way easier to do that than to paint a different object that no one's painted for and try to figure it out in the process of also trying to figure out like the technique of NMM. It's like you're limiting really what you're experimenting on.
Yeah. That's it. Long story short, and the other thing is you're probably already doing this to some level. You almost certainly are.
Yeah.
But just recognizing that that's what you're doing, and like give yourself a pat on the back in the moment that you're doing that. Sometimes just saying, oh, yeah, I am doing this little thing that I don't usually do. I'm going to try this little thing that I don't usually do or I haven't done in a while. That in itself is its own small victory. And that'll often like keep you painting or get you excited, because then you become more aware and you're present and you're seeing and deciding what's working and what's not working. And that in and of itself is growth. And that is how you become a better painter. If I were to say, if there is one thing across all of miniature painting that is guaranteed to make you a better painter over time, it is this exact thing, is always trying one little different thing and just making note of how it goes. And it doesn't need to go great for it still to make you a better painter because you're learning across each new unique model that you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like we kind of blasted through all three of these questions pretty quickly.
I'm farting so much.
So much?
Yeah, it was a bunch of them.
Have mercy. There's the fourth question here we could go through, considering we are an hour and a half into the podcast, which is like,
Let's do it.
kind of how long the podcast normally used to be. But anyways, I'm not salty. You're salty. The last question is about conventions and comes from PJ. You want to read it?
PJ. Yes. PJ says, I'm wondering if you guys have/could do an overview of the major conventions out there, especially in North America. What makes them good and /less good and why?
Yeah. We could try to do that. We haven't been to all of them, so it's like it's kind of unfair to try to cast judgment on a thing you haven't really experienced at all. But we can speak about the ones we have been to.
Yes, and ones that are kind of on our short list.
For sure, yeah.
Because I think we've been to enough. Here's the key. We've been to enough that when we look at what a convention is, certain ones will raise our radars.
I think really you've been to a lot. I've been to maybe like I can only think of 2 right now, maybe 3.
Okay.
Oh no, LVO. I've been to 3. Yeah,
You went to Monte San Savino too.
that's 2, and then Adepticon 3.
Okay.
I can't think of more, but there are a lot more. There's KublaCon, there's DragonCon, there's ReaperCon. Yeah. ReaperCon, the first 2 I've only heard of by name. I don't really even know where they are, but ReaperCon is one that I want to go to because one cool thing they do at ReaperCon is you get to do a factory tour of the area where or I don't know if you get to do that or if they're willing to do that if you ask. But either way, people have said that they've gone on factory tours of Reaper's facility, which I love that stuff. I love getting to see the behind the scenes. I love to see like how the models are made, how they're cast, get to ask questions. That's a really cool thing that I haven't heard of you being able to do at other shows because they're not attached to a big company like Reaper is to ReaperCon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the best thing you can do, we'll hand you out some of the larger convention names and the ones that we are excited for, is to get a good feeling for yourself. What kind of convention excites you most, and maybe what's a good way to dip your toe into it if you haven't been to one. And the first thing to check for that, and this is going to require more homework for you based on your location, is to find which one is the mid-sized one that's within driving distance of you. In the Midwest, there's a bunch of these.
CooleyCon just happened like 2 weeks ago or something like that,
Yep.
Smaller one.
Yep, and it's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And that's a fun one. That's a good entry point. It's not massive. It's just a couple days over a weekend, long weekend, Friday through Sunday. There's one in Austin, Minnesota called Austin Con that I go to every year, and that's a fun, smaller one. And they have a painting competition, they have gaming, and they have all sorts of stuff. And then finding what are their focuses, because like the experience at ReaperCon is a little bit more on the D&D side because Reaper is more known for that, and just miniatures, miniature painting, fantasy style stuff. And on that exact same weekend is the Nova Open every year in Washington, D.C., which is more wargaming focused, but also very heavy into miniature painting. A lot of miniature painting classes by amazing painters are put on there every year. They've got a nice big, fairly sizable showroom and stuff you want to buy. So that's a great example of 2 on the same weekend, different parts of the country, different focuses, but they're both miniature conventions. Mm-hmm. So determining that. So
yeah, speaking of focuses, obviously you have like the more gaming focused ones like the Renegade Opens of the world, the Las Vegas Opens of the world. So that's the kind of experience you want. You can go for there. We talked earlier about putting flyers in game stores. Going to game stores is actually a great way to figure out about local conventions. Yeah. I see so many little small things like where like a cool like voice actor or actress will come to like a local show and there will be like a thing there. Like there are so many little flyers for little events in your area at game stores. So check there. That'd be a great place to find them.
Yes, and I find those a lot. The local ones, especially by being part of like the we call it the Frozen North gaming community on Facebook. Yeah. So people will post local conventions on the local Facebook groups So it's a good way to learn about local stuff. And you can even find out what those groups are, join them if you haven't, and then just even pose the question like, are there local competitions to our state or, in the region that anyone knows about? I just want to kind of see what stuff I can put on my calendar, and people will let you know, and sometimes even link you to those events Facebook pages or websites and stuff like that. So that's an important thing. We obviously could talk about Adepticon. That's the one you all know most about because it's the one that we go to every year, and I keep hitting the microphone.
Yeah, the fact we put the mics lower now to hopefully reduce the amount of lip smacking we do. I don't know if it's actually working, but yeah, the one side effect is that it's closer to where like I normally keep my hands, and I keep hitting the bottom of it.
So you just keep smacking my crotch into it.
Yeah, if you hear a little thump, it's from
your
us.
wiener.
It's from it's because I thought about saying a certain thing, but I'm not going to.
Adepticon is kind of the I don't say it's the holy grail, but it is like the
Holy Grail.
It is the biggest wargaming miniature painting convention. It is where the Golden Demon is in the United States. It's just a bazillion painting classes you can take. There's a bazillion things you can buy. There's
Tournaments.
Tons of tournaments for a wide variety of games, not just Warhammer. There's the massive show hall where you'll spend way too much money on shit you don't need. So that's a big one. Obviously, there's Gen Con, the true mammoth, which it's like the epitome of gluttony. It is everything all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once, I think is the name of the movie.
It is.
And that is Gen Con. So I do want to go to Gen Con. I might be going next year. Sexy Teeth Joshy is pushing pretty hard to go next year. I'm a little bit overwhelmed by it, and I'm just kind of like, I feel like I will, by the time we're like driving back home or flying back home, I'll be like, I can't put my hand on what exactly I did, so, but that's a massive one. That's a big one. And especially if you're on the gaming side, I don't know if they do like wargaming and stuff, but they do have a ton of RPG stuff at Gen Con.
There's a ton of open play. There's a ton of people making board games there and demoing them and stuff like that. So there's a ton of that as well. A lot of tables also where you can just find friends and play them. I always get pictures. I'm a part of the Board Game Geek Facebook group, and also another one or a couple other ones on Facebook. And I always get pictures of people when they go to Gen Con about what games they're demoing out from the developer and stuff like that.
Yeah, you want your finger on the pulse of cool new games that are unreleased or just newly released.
Speaking on Kickstarter.
Speaking of Lorcana, I remember Lorcana first came out. That was like one of the first places it was available, if not the first place.
I think it was. Wasn't Ben there, like buying stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was just the sheer amount of Ben bought stuff for investment purposes.
Yeah.
The line that was like a mile long to get the Lorcana boxes of cards. But yeah, there's stuff like that's just an example of like the new hotness and stuff and trying things out you can do there. Do you have any interest in Gen Con at all?
I do, absolutely. Just to say I've gone one time, But it's kind of like all things I love in one spot, but I just want to be able to walk around, I don't want to have to struggle to do that, because that would really just take the fun out of it for me.
I have heart palpitations just looking at the picture of outside the doors. Did you see that picture this year from up on the walkway above?
Yeah.
We took a picture and it's just a sea of people waiting to get in.
Yeah, dude.
And I'm just like anxiety just thinking about that. I'm like, yuck, get away from me. I don't want to be around all these people. But that is what Gen Con is.
Yeah. And maybe it's just one of those situations where like that moment is like the moment where like all the people, I don't know why they do it, but they stand in line to get their badge, like at Epicon. It's like and it's like so long. It's such a long fucking line, and like you don't need to do that. So maybe like you don't need to be in that sea of bodies. You could just like come in like 30 minutes later, and then it'd be fine. But who knows?
You just need a seasoned veteran to hold our hands and tell us the ways.
We need a Gen Con Sherpa.
The wise ways. That's it. Any other ones you're looking forward to that exist?
So there's always the World Model Expo, which that is tough to pin down because it moves around. It came to Chicago. It went to the Netherlands, and it's going probably somewhere else. And I think it happens once every 2 years, once every 3 years.
I just pictured a map from when you say this, the Indiana Jones, where there's just the plane going over the map.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
There's just a dotted line that is following. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
That's one. Another one, just because I know of a few others in the EU. The Scale Model Challenge is in Eindhoven in Netherlands.
It's in Eindhoven, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I mean, it's not German, but it's close. And you have Salute, which is one in the UK. Of course, all of the Golden Demon events get done in Europe and various countries, and also in the UK as well. There's Monte Sansevino, which happens in a small, remote village in central Italy.
That you actually do need a Sherpa to get there.
Yeah.
You can't physically arrive.
I don't know if it's related, but you have Spiel in Germany, which is where you get the Spiel des Jahres Game of the Year award, which is like a huge prestigious award in our industry, in our adjacent industry, more of a board game thing than it is. But if we're mentioning Gen Con, might as well mention Spiel.
What's the spiel?
What's the Spiel?
I would be remiss, speaking of little Andy Wardle, MPO, Miniature Painting Open, is a big one that they're growing and in person. They had an in-person one this year, and they're big talks over at the Cult of Paint about that continuing to grow and be an annual thing. It's more painting focused. So again, asking yourself what are you excited to get out of it? Maybe it's, if you're from North America, you wanted to take a trip overseas and you tie it up with some painting and some classes or competing. Kind of two birds with one stone in that regard. So that's great. A couple, maybe just one more that's local to the U.S. that I really want to go to, and that is PAX Unplugged. Penny Arcade Expo. Any of the Penny Arcade expos I would love to go to, but the PAX Unplugged is specifically less about video games, more about board games, tangible gaming, real world gaming.
There's one that you've been to, actually, that you haven't mentioned yet, and that's TMX.
TMX. Oh.
The fuck?
If they get it, they'll get it. Tabletop Minions Expo taking place in Wisconsin in the summer. That's a smaller one. Just kind of hang out with some folks. Usually Vincy V, Uncle Adam, Sam Lenz. Zambies was there this year. You can take some classes. It's more, it's kind of like low stress, low energy. It's not massive. You can play some games. You can hang out. It's more of just kind of a community feel one, and it's a great example of that.
There's one more that we forgot about.
I'm sure. I feel like there was important ones I was missing. That
Vincy Con.
Oh, bro, no one can come to Vincy Con now. But that's the best convention. Yeah, that is just where 5 sweaty men get together in Vince's basement, covered in golden retriever hair. Literally everything you own.
We eat blue Takis exclusively.
Yeah, nothing but blue Takis and sparkling ice are consumed over the course of 5 days. And the rest of your diet is just dog hair fiber. It's a lot of fiber in your diet. You don't mean to eat it, but you eat it.
Yeah. Don't eat more than one brownie.
Yeah. Do not. There is a story about on that where I thought I was fucking Tom Hanks in Castaway, and my air mattress was the fucking raft, and I was screaming for Wilson. 3 a.m. Vince! Dude, the seas were choppy that night, I tell you that. Oh boy, we had a good time though. Oh god, I hit it again. Sorry, audio listeners. Yeah, that's a fun one. Making your own VincyCon. You know what I mean? Like, find people that you are not going to get sick of over the course of 3 or 4 days, and finding a place, someone that's willing to host. I mean, that's a key, because Vince doesn't have children, so it makes it easier.
Mm-hmm. It does make it easier.
Let your significant other, your partner, treat them to a 4-day vacation away from the house so they don't have to deal with you. I mean, or maybe you're one of those lucky people that I'm totally envious of, that your partner is like, they're all in to join you with this, and they want to be part of the painting and the gaming too, and that would be freaking phenomenal. So you need to go together. You need to pull up a PowerPoint to pitch to your partner on why you need to host. your own small convention of painting and gaming and that kind of a thing.
Okay, I have an unrelated story, but related to like having like a PowerPoint presentation. So when I was little, I discovered Warcraft, and at the time we had dial-up internet, and dial-up internet sucks to play internet games on because the moment someone picks the phone up, you've lost the match, right? And that happened a lot, you know. And so I petitioned to my parents to get fucking not even cable, just fucking DSL, you know?
Oh, right.
I wanted some kind of way to have the phone and the internet separate, and they didn't buy it. They did not see the value, and so what I did.
There's not a whole lot of bonus for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they don't give a fuck. Yeah,
Like, they're not losing the match because grandma called. They pick up the phone.
yeah. And so one thing I did was I went to my class in 4th grade and I sent around a poll asking them how many of the students had cable, DSL, or dial-up. And the vast majority of people in my class had cable. And so I took this information back to my parents and I was like, look, see?
What are we, the pores? Mom, Dad,
Mom, I'm ashamed of us.
do I need to worry about getting dinner this week? I mean,
Oh,
am I getting second? Am I going school shopping at Goodwill again?
oh no.
What?
Yeah, so that was a real thing that happened, and it worked. I did get DSL internet, and then I could game. And then when I lost, it wasn't because of the internet, but it was just because I was shit at the game. So.
Did they make the decision to say yes to it because their status was put into question?
No.
They're like,
I think they were like, he's putting work into this. We'll get the dumb internet stuff. I think that's really what it was.
yeah, it's like when my daughter said that she would organize all my magic cards alphabetically.
Oh yeah.
All the uncommons. She did finish it. She did finish all the uncommons over this summer. And she said she would do it if I bought her a Lululemon sweatshirt. I'm like, yeah, of course. And I at the time, I did not realize how expensive Lululemon sweatshirts were.
But what is that, like 10 hours of fucking work though?
Oh, way more than 10 hours.
Yeah,
of work.
totally worth it.
Yeah.
What?
It's like $160 for the sweatshirt.
Holy shit.
Holy
shit.
Yeah. I also got her some other stuff too. Is like, because the thing with kids is you gotta, they're like dogs. You gotta give them little treats now and again to keep them motivated and keep them, their eyes on you. When other dogs are walking by and you're walking your dog on the street, you get that little sniff of that little bacon strips in your pockets, and then they're not gonna pull on the leash and go check out and smell that other dog's butt. You gotta give them little treats. Children are the same way. You just need to give them little treats. You give them a little surprise. You got this the best thing is like I'll buy a thing that I know she likes. Not that expensive, like a $10 thing. And I put it on the mantle above the fireplace, and then she just looks at it, and I'm like, you got to get through the rest of the black cards and the rest of the blue cards by the end of the week, and if you do, that's yours. She's done. She gets it done.
Dang, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The freaking parenting hacks, dude.
Yeah, dude.
You didn't come to TUP for painting advice. You came to learn how to be a better father.
Yeah, you just buy their love is the key. So yeah, that's it. Long story short, she went through I think it was about 8,000 magic cards this summer. She organized my uncommons.
Dang, dude.
She was pretty proud of herself, and I'm like, hey, you want to go look at how many of the commons there are?
There's less though, right? Less commons?
Way more.
There's more commons than uncommons?
They're common.
I'm an idiot. Okay. For some reason, whenever I see the letter U, I assume lower quality. I don't fucking know why, It's like the word is common, and then you have the prefix version, uncommon. It's less special. I could just think about what the fucking word meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Commons. Yeah, that'd be rough.
Typical pack of magic cards is 11 commons, 3 uncommons, and 1 rare.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 3 times as much that she's going to have to go through there. I don't know if I can even...
You can't even afford that.
I can handle... I can't afford it.
You can't afford that
I
labor.
can't afford that. But also how much value there is going through my commons. I got to work through different organization methods in my head to maximize my magic card collection.
That's a fucking first world problem.
Yeah, I know. This shit's so expensive. God damn it. Well, we went through all of your motherfucking questions.
All of them. There are none left.
That's it. But you know what that means? That means that if you have burning questions, or you come up with a burning question throughout this episode, or you may randomly come across a question, and you're like, this is related to the hobby, maybe. I want to know who to ask. Us. You can ask us, and we will answer it, maybe, on the podcast. If it's funny, for sure, we will answer it. We will do more episodes like this. But in order to do that, you all need to submit your questions. And if you want to submit your question, you got to give us $5 a month. Please join the Patreon. It is what helps me afford the gas to drive up here. It allows us to have this wonderful space in Scott's studio and pay for our weight in SD cards and fun things like this. Eventually, we'll get Vince back on here.
Yeah.
We'll do it one day.
I have the recordings of him.
Yeah, the hard work's done.
Yeah.
We should secretly record things that the guys say at VincyCon, and then we can turn those into buttons.
Oh my gosh.
So Vince says stuff like, "Where are all my pubes?" And then we put that and then we put that. And then whenever we play that, people would be like, "Where are all my pubes?" Where are all my pubes? You should have heard the conversation that led up to that question from Vince. That's the real nitty gritty of VincyCon. But
you watching season 4 of The Boys? Because there's a pube related thing.
Oh no, I'm currently watching season 3 of The Bear.
So am I. Cool.
Manny Matheson, fucking killing it.
Yeah, dude, he's great.
He's so good. It doesn't surprise me if you've ever watched any Manny Matheson YouTube videos of him cooking that he would kill that role because he just plays himself.
Yeah, but he kind of does. He's kind of like clueless though. Like he doesn't know anything about a restaurant and how it functions, right? Because he has that one scene where he brings the fuck. How far are you? They're taking the photo shoot. I finished that episode where they do the photo shoot where they're buffing the floors with John Cena. Okay, I haven't seen that, but so you see the thing I'm talking about where he walks up, he shows them the food, he pours the water, and then he walks away. It's like, bro, what are you doing?
He's so proud of himself that he did it according to the way they do it. Yeah. And he comes back in with this like childlike glee on his face that he did it. He did the thing. And they're like, the fuck are you holding? You're still holding the food.
Yeah, that part's great.
Yes, he does that. He does have that bit. He has a bit of like Chris Farley, Jack Black to him.
For sure, absolutely.
Which he does so well. This is now a show about TV shows that we watch.
A show about shows.
There's another show that I watched that they just, season 2 I think is out now, that you need to see if you haven't seen. It's called The Old Man.
Okay.
Starring Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow.
Okay.
Where Jeff Bridges is an old retired assassin.
Okay, yeah.
He's got this whole backstory.
Yeah. That works.
It's fucking gold. The first season is so amazing. I'm excited for season 2. And it's got the funny moments too. It doesn't take itself too seriously. But he's got fucking dogs, dude. And his dogs, oh boy. He's got those things trained to a T. And these guys, oh man, you gotta watch season 1, man. You see what happens when he just whistles. These young assassins trying to come kill Jeff Bridges are fucked.
Yeah, that sounds pretty sick, actually.
It's so good. So yeah, watch Old Man.
Have you ever watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Oh yeah, I watched it 2 times.
Yeah, so you've seen the scene with the dog at the end.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was one of those movies, and Tarantino gets me because I absolutely adore Tarantino and his films, and every time I watch one of his movies for the first time, I'm kind of like, but it's no Reservoir Dogs, it's no Django. And then I watch it the second time and I'm like, oh man, there was so much here I missed. And then I watch it a third time and I'm like, there's just so much like golden minutia nuggets that he rewards you for, like, no detail hasn't been excruciatingly planned out in those movies. And god damn it.
Yeah. Those are the best ones to rewatch over and over again.
Just fucking smashes into the goddamn fireplace, man. They'll just smash in her head. Oh, God. God, that movie's so good.
All right, we're going to be done with the main topic right now.
Meow. Welcome.
to the end of the podcast.
Man,
Do I normally make that loud sound at the end of the podcast as well?
I guess you do now.
I
From
do
now
now,
on.
and also it's worthy of applause.
Yeah.
Where's the one that's like terrifying? Terrifying.
This one?
Oh God.
No, that's what it was.
My whole body tensed up.
Ripping sick beats. It's closer to me because it's the one I accidentally pressed.
I
And
think.
so it must be,
I mean, I don't want to tell you what it is. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah. I think we turned the sound effect down. Since then
because it was so loud.
Yeah.
It did make me pee a little and I was even the one that pressed it. But I thought it was gonna. I thought that's usually the Vince Sure button. That's why I was surprised.
It used to be. It used to be.
It will one day again. It will be.
We will reinstate it.
Yeah. Well, Scott, for us, there's going to be a little bit of a break more than usual because we're recording this one early, and that means that the next one will probably be on track, and so it'll be a little bit of a while. But for the audio and video listeners and watchers, it's not going to be. They're going to assume that everything is the exact same as it's always been and always will be. And I don't know where I was going with this sentence.
Give it a little inside baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there was gonna be a real key life lesson that I was leading up to here, and there's not.
There's not. So allow me to shill.
No.
If you guys like the podcast and you want to support it, there are a lot of ways to do it. We mentioned the Patreon earlier. That's a big way. You can pick up merch linked in the description from our Teespring. That's another big way. You can watch our channel on YouTube with ads enabled. We run an ad every 30 minutes. That's a great way to support the channel without having to pay anything. And yeah, that's about it, since you already covered the Patreon.
Oh, we did it, Scott. You did it. We got it all. You got it all. We got it all. All. Once again, I started a sentence and didn't know where I was going to finish it.
Where am I?
Scott, enjoy the Grecian islands.
I will.
I hope that you find Aphrodite and Apollo and the rest of them.
Poseidon.
Zeus, Demeter,
Oh, shit. That was a good one.
Achilles,
Charon.
Icarus.
That's Egyptian.
No, Icarus. He's the man that flew too close to the sun and his wings melted.
That's not an Egyptian one?
No, Icarus. It's also a Nintendo game.
Oh, okay.
I believe that this is the official Grecian accent
It is.
for telling all of the stories of the gods. Yeah, and what about what's Hades? That's a big one.
I feel like I should be really good at this because I've played a lot of that one game. Not Hades. No, it is called Hades.
What's the game that takes place in Hades? They're coming out with the second one.
Hades is not a location. It's a person.
I know, it's a dude, and he's in the underworld.
Yes.
And so he had to go across the river Styx to be delivered to Hades. And there's a giant dog that guards it, and his name is Cerberus. Now that I think on it, I know quite a hell.
Yeah, what the hell, bro?
I know a lot of. All right, so we listen to this podcast when we go on family trips. It's called Greeking Out.
This is why you listen all the way to the end of the podcast, because you think it's going to end.
Yeah. So it's called Greeking Out, and my daughter loves it, and it's about like nerdy stuff, so I'm all for it. And they just tell stories. They're like 20, 30-minute long podcast episodes, and they tell really specific stories of things that happen in Greek mythology.
Cool.
And sometimes this is very prolific and long-running podcast that they kind of spread out at certain points, and sometimes they'll go to Roman mythology, and sometimes they go to like different like Eastern mythologies. Very, very cool stuff, and you just like learn really specific stories that
cool.
obviously took place. They were totally real, 100%.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, that could be fun inspiration for a character for, D&D or for a miniature or for anything, paint scheme even.
Yeah, or just learning about the history of the world,
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, where is Atlantis? Come on, it's somewhere.
It's somewhere.
It's got to be there. Maybe you'll find it when you're in Greece.
I'll look for it. I'll
Okay,
let
you let me know. Take a picture if you find it.
yeah. I found it.
I found it right over here the whole time. Why? I don't know why that was so funny to me. Well, that's it. This is our podcast, and this is the end of our podcast. You're probably thankful for that. See, got you on the
Get me out of this hell!